No, you don't need the.
I'm doing this my way.
He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of items.
What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and in today's video we are going to go over the LCS teams, talk about the odds for each team to win the summer split. I didn't put them into my spreadsheet yet, so I don't know what the percentages will be, but we're going to go in reverse order. So this is what the sports book has to say about each team. That's basically it. So CLG is first up. CLG is at plus 5,000. It looks like Dokla is going to be the starting. Wait, that looks. I don't. Are there more changes to CLG that I don't know about? Okay. So, assuming that they haven't completely changed their starting roster, let me just see what they say down here. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know why all these other players are here. I guess it's their academy team. I do recognize some of the names. But Dokla, Contracts, Palafox, Luger, and Poom. They weren't good last split. And I'm not super excited. Going from Jenkins to Dokla really shouldn't make much of a difference. I think for a team like CLG, if you were going to plan on playing around Luger's carrying upside, you're probably better off having Jenkins than Dokla. I think it's probably a better fit. Jenkins has proven he can play that style, like on weak side. Pretty good gangplank, pretty good cannon. Just a pretty steady player overall. I'm surprised they made that move. Contracts was really the biggest problem on this team last split, and they didn't do anything to change that, unless Rose Thorns are a new jungler, which I don't think that they are. So I don't think that CLG will perform much better. The thing I give CLG some credit for is that, you know, they are trying some different players out that we wouldn't have really thought of, you know, like a year and a half ago. And maybe Luger can turn into something. That's really what they're betting on. And that strategy is better than a lot of the other ones that are out there. Speaking of bad strategies, let's talk about Immortals. So Immortals, I have not seen a press release about their roster. I know that Xerxes has gone to the LEC. Looks like Kenvi is going to be their starting jungler. I think we've seen Kenvi before. I don't know much about Kenvi at all. Then they also changed bot laners. So they got rid of Wild Turtle, which I think is a good move. Brought in Lost, which I think is an okay move. And they also changed Ignar. So going from Destiny to Ignar is a good move as well. So Revenge is overrated by the Immortals organization. He is not a very good player. He is not going to be the best top laner in the LCS at any point in his career, which isn't to say that he couldn't be on a good team. It's just that a good team will not exist where he is the most important player on the team. That is also, you know, winning championships. So, you know, that's kind of what Immortals has decided to do. That's their decision. Kenvi, I don't really know anything about him. Power of Evil is a pretty good mid laner. I think that he can be competitive with a lot of the top mid laners in the league. And I think that, you know, it's pretty tough to put Power of Evil in a bad spot in drafts, or at least force him into a bad position. His team can always choose to just draft poorly. But overall, I think, you know, he's a pretty flexible player, really good at the control mage style, and will try to play assassins at different points. Lost is a good but not great AD carry. League average is probably the best word to describe him. Ignar is a very good support, in my opinion. I like his playstyle a lot. His best time as a professional was on teams that were very aggressive. Hopefully, Immortals plays very aggressive. If they do that, they could kind of outperform this position. But I doubt that they, you know, break into the top 5, for example. If they did break into the top 5, that would mean that Kenvi had a really good split, and the Lost and Ignar combo was very powerful, which would be a good story. I just don't expect it to happen. Next up, we have TSM. So Huni, Spica. They have Maple now. Yeah, so Huni, Spica, Maple, Tactical, and Shen Yi. Huni is still an okay player. Good but not great at this point in his career. I think that his career arc is still very impressive. People will remember Huni for everything he's accomplished as a professional player. People kind of give him a lot of criticism. Some of it's fair, some of it's not. I think that other regions do a better job of supporting the type of playstyle that Huni has, where it looks sometimes like he's inting, but in reality, he's trying to fight in a scenario that can get his team back in the game, even though it's unlikely. Spica, still probably a top 3 jungler in the LCS. I'll probably do another rankings video on something like that. Maple, I think that people are probably overthinking the Maple acquisition. I don't think that Maple will be a huge difference maker in the LCS. I don't think that he just, instantly comes in as the best mid laner. I think there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 3 or 4 mid laners who I think are better than him or will be better than him. And then we have Tactical and Shen Yi. Actually, I'm not sure who's starting at support. Maybe it will be Shen Yi. But we have Tactical. Tactical is a pretty good player. They did a good job playing around him at various points during last split. I don't think he's a good Senna player. I think that he played it when it was really overpowered, but I don't think of Tactical as a super strong Senna player. So that might be an issue, because I think that Senna is very strong right now and is very popular, like Senna Kench. And we'll have to see where that goes. TSM, at plus 3,000, that's a little interesting. I don't think I'm going there. I don't think I'm going to make that bet, though. Next up, Dignitas. So Dignitas is at plus 1,000. That seems a little rich for me. They swapped from Fake God to Gamsu. I don't see this going much better for Dignitas than it did last split. Fake God, did he underperform last split? Yes. Do I have any reason to think that Gamsu is a huge improvement? No. River, still a good jungler. I think that it's pretty interesting that River and Maple are both in the LCS now. It'd be more cool if they were both on the same team. But, they're both pretty good players. So River with Blue, I think that is still a pretty good combination. Neo and Biofrost is a pretty solid bot lane. I don't think that Neo was a great Senna player either. It doesn't really seem to fit his playstyle. I think Neo has more flashy playmaking upside, which is a good thing from your AD carry, and it fits in line with this type of roster. So can Dignitas win an LCS championship by putting all of their resources into Neo? I would say no, because if that playstyle is viable, there are a few teams that I would prefer to play around their AD carry. I'll put it that way. So at plus 1,000, again, I think that I don't think that they're going to be a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. I think that they will be competitive throughout the... Oh, that's why. I was on the wrong screen. They will be competitive throughout the season, and they will be able to take games off of good teams and, force teams into tough draft situations and everything, which is great. Their rosters aren't listed there. But that's basically it with Dignitas. I don't have huge faith in Dignitas to make a run in the playoffs, and that's really what these futures numbers are based off of. Next up, Golden Guardians. So Golden Guardians were pretty surprising during last split and during playoffs. They decided to go from Lost to Stixxay, and I don't think that's a bad move. I think Stixxay was kind of not treated fairly. I don't know if that's accurate. Stixxay it has always been a little bit better than people gave him credit for. When they were at their peak, when he was at his peak in like 2016, I think, the Tristana Ardent Sensor meta, where he was playing like Rageblade Trist, it shows that he has had good mechanical upside. I'm not sure if he still does have that, but for the past couple of years, he's been on brutal teams and brutal organizations and hasn't really been given a fair shake, I think. Licorice is a good top laner, not great, but he is very good. If you told me Golden Guardians was able to play around Pride Stalker's hyper aggressive early game, Licorice was building up leads in the early game, Ablaze Olive was playing supportive style champions to help their side laners, if you told me Ablaze Olive is a great Talia player, wouldn't shock me at all. Talia, TF, Galio, those style of champions. That's probably the type of mid laner you would really want to have on Golden Guardians to give as much support to Pride Stalker as possible, because he was probably the most surprising player on the Golden Guardians roster last split. I don't think that they're going to improve on their performance from last split. I think that 2 out of Dignitas, TSM, and Immortals will kind of surpass Golden Guardians during the split. Next up, Flyquest. So we have... Okay, so I don't know Philip. I guess they have a new top laner. Kumo was, always pretty good. I'm surprised that they made that change. Jose Diodo had a good split last split. He's always been overrated, I think, because he was picked up in the perfect meta for Jose Diodo, which was the carry jungler meta. And I don't think that he's going to have the immense champion pool that's required to be successful in this upcoming meta. I think players like River, Inspired, Spica, Santorin, Blabber, and Closer will all have a better time in this type of meta than Jose Diodo. But that's why they play the games. Maybe he is good at those styles of champions, but has just never had the opportunity to kind of showcase it for a prolonged period of time. Takui had a really good split. That was pretty impressive. I think that everybody's kind of rooting for him for various reasons. Johnson and Afromu, solid bot lane. I don't know anything about this Philip guy, unless that's just a name change, but it'd be cool if he was good, but I really don't know anything about him. So in terms of their future prospect, I would say that they don't really have a legitimate chance to win this split. And now we have 4 teams who are all 450 or less. First up, we have Cloud9. So Cloud9 is, in my mind, a mess, but I think that they're still good enough to pull it off. I think that the failure of last split was completely avoidable, was a complete joke, and will not have any long-term ramifications for the organization, but people who are paying attention should, lose a little bit of respect for how Cloud9 operates. Cloud9. I think that the backlash against Summit's performance in playoffs kind of exemplifies the issues with the LCS fan base in general. Not really going to say much more about that. It's insane to me that Cloud9 decided to move away from him. It sounds like the team probably just didn't like playing with him and having a player with that playstyle on the team. Fudge is a good top laner, serviceable top laner, might be the best top laner in the league. Well, Bwipo is probably better, but instantly becomes one of the best top laners in the league. Blabber, one of the best junglers in the league. Jensen, I've never been a big fan of Jensen. I've always thought that he's kind of a little overrated because his teammates have been so strong. But Jensen is good enough to be on a LCS championship team and to be pretty good internationally. I don't know what his international record is, but I I guess he made that one huge mistake one time. But outside of that, I think that he's been a serviceable mid laner. I don't think that he will be able to compete against the best teams in the world. So in that way, I think that putting this kind of roster together eliminates their possibility of winning a world championship, which was already unlikely to begin with. But when you have a player like Berserker on your team, that kind of theoretical upside is what you're hoping for, because Berserker, I think, does have huge upside. I don't know if he's a world championship ADC, but if, a year or two we look back at this and, a North American team kind of builds itself around a player with the mechanical abilities of Berserker, would I be shocked? Absolutely not. And the reason that kind of stuff happens is like when you're watching a game and you just see a player on a champion is just moving somewhat differently. You can't really understand why it looks so different, but you can just kind of tell that it's different. That happened to me with Berserker in a Jhin game. I'm huge anti-Jhin guy. And just something about the way Berserker was moving on the champion and was able to make plays with the champion in close corridors really was pretty impressive. There was like a play that stands out, I think, at the second mid tower where he did something that just, I don't see people make that type of play very often, and I was very impressed. And then Sven going to support. I think he can definitely pull it off. Sven has always been a very good, very smart player. The transition to support, I think, is maybe there are some growing pains, but I think he will be good at it long term. Then we have 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves, I think at this point, is probably given a little bit too much credit for their consistency. I think that they probably weren't as bad as they looked in the finals, but EG just kind of had their number. Someday, still a very good top laner. Closer is a very good jungler. Abadage is a good mid laner, if not very good mid laner. FBI I think is probably the most overrated player on the 100 Thieves roster, but he's still a top 80 carry in the region. I just think that when we consistently talk about FBI as being the first or second best 80 carry in the region, I don't think that's really the case. You all know who I think the best 80 carry is, and I'll get to that in a minute or two. And then Huhi's a good support. 100 Thieves, could they win the summer split? Of course they could. If you get into a spot where, Closer is playing at an extremely high level like he did last year and he's kind of carrying the entire team, like, I wouldn't be shocked that happens. But I just think that the two teams that we haven't talked about yet, and maybe even Cloud9, I think those three teams may just match up better than 100 Thieves, or match up favorably with 100 Thieves. So let's move on. So the next team is supposed to be EG, but we're going to talk about Team Liquid first. So Team Liquid, we still have Bwipo, Santorin, Bjergsen, Hansama, and Core JJ. Bwipo, definitely top 2 top laner in the LCS. He is an incredible player. Seems to be one of the smartest League of Legends players in the Western world, Western region. I guess not really a region. But just an incredible player. I don't have any complaints with Bwipo. Santorin, I think that Santorin, I have said this before and I'll say it again. I think that as time goes on, Santorin's probably going to be the limiting factor for this team. I don't want to kind of overplay what happened last split. I know that in the EG series he missed a couple of smites and stuff like that, but it really wasn't his fault. I know that people talked about, Baron gaining health for some strange reason, like on the minute, was something that nobody's really going to think of in the moment, and I completely agree with that take. I don't want to kind of criticize Santorin too much about anything like that. It's just I think even in that situation or in other situations that are possible, Santorin there's a limit to his talent compared to some of the other junglers in the region. Santorin's probably in the 4 to 6 range for junglers that I would want to have on my team, which, it doesn't mean that Team Liquid's incapable of winning the LCS with him. It just means that if they go to Worlds with Santorin on their team, I think they have like a 0% chance of winning the World Championship. Or like maybe, half percent or 1%, but not good because he's just a limiting factor. Bjergsen had a good split for someone who's coming off of that much rest. League really isn't that difficult of a game. When you've played it as much as Bjergsen has, you can kind of just pick it back up. Mechanically, sure, it's possible that it was possible that he would be rusty for a little while, but that rust lasting for more than a week or two was just not going to happen. And then we have Hans Sama and Core JJ. Hans Sama, I think, is also better than FPI. I like Hans Sama a lot. I think that he's definitely a top 3 or 4 AD carry. Core JJ, probably the best AD carry in the region. After watching Vulcan at MSI, I feel like you just kind of have to give it to Core JJ at this point. And I'm completely fine with that. Let Vulcan try to win back some credit from the community. But that was a pretty rough performance at MSI. And then we have the current champions. EG at plus 350. I think that EG should be the favorites to win this split. The MSI performance was shocking to me. I was very surprised with some of the things that happened. I thought that they looked lost at various points during the tournament. Having things like Baron just snuck away from them consistently was pretty surprising. Lacking the communication to help prevent Vulcan from dying before these important time frames in a game like Baron is pretty surprising. Some of their decision making was very bad. They beat the teams they were supposed to beat, but they consistently lost against G2. I think that ultimately they were out-coached and just, I think, probably just out-communicated or out-prepared, which I guess kind of all falls in the same realm. I just really think that getting out of the preseason tournament, going into the regular season, a lot of the issues that EG had were caused by the coaching staff. I think that from a talent perspective, Impact is a league average top laner, but has the upside of winning some of these matchups that, is somewhat surprising. Like, has a lot of good counter picks, can hold their own against players like Bwipo. So you have to give him credit for that. But I think if you played Bwipo against Impact 100 times, I think that Bwipo would win more of them, which over, a larger sample of games is pretty relevant. But Impact has some tricks up his sleeve as well. I think Inspired is the best jungler in the LCS. I know some people don't want to give him that yet. I think that they're not giving enough credit to his success in Europe and the fact that he was really the heart and soul of Rogue. I know that Rogue performed well, but in order to do that, they had to get a jungler from Damwon. So it's like, it's not like they got some kind of random to play jungle and performed well. They got a very good jungler on Rogue still. So then we have Jojo Pyon. I think that Jojo Pyon really outperformed expectations at MSI. Were there some issues and big mistakes that happened that were not easily avoidable but could be expected? It did happen, but there were points against some of these very strong teams at MSI where Jojo was kind of the best performer on Evil Geniuses, which says actually Inspired was almost always the best performer in almost every game at MSI. But Jojo Pyon, also had games where he was the focal point of the team, did the best on the team, which is great to see. And I think that Inspired and Jojo Pyon can be a very good combination for years to come. The best part of all of this is that Inspired in some very real way feels responsible for Jojo Pyon's success. It sounds like from the documentaries that are out there about Evil Geniuses, Inspired is tough on Jojo Pyon, but is also respectful towards Jojo Pyon. I think Inspired understands that Jojo is a very talented player with immense upside. Seems like the kind of guy who's a little scatterbrained at times and is very nonchalant. But ultimately, I think Jojo Pyon wants to be successful, wants to be a winner, and that is not just a winner. He wants to be elite. He wants to be on the level of the best mid laners in the world, which I think anybody can say that, but it takes a different type of player to ultimately have that in their range of outcomes. And maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe Jojo Pyon's really not that good at all, but I kind of believe him. Like, if he's just a con man, he is a great con man, and he is convincing. Then we have Danny and Vulcan. I think that Danny and Vulcan are the best bot lane in the LCS, and I think a lot of that comes down to Danny, because if you told me, Hansama and Core JJ versus Danny and Vulcan, I do admit that there is probably an advantage for Core JJ in that matchup, but I think that there's also an advantage for Danny against Hansama in terms of playmaking upside. Danny has had some of the best plays in LCS history, maybe not League of Legends history, but in LCS history for sure. The things that he's able to pull off are just kind of insane. And throughout MSI, I think there were some points where his confidence was a little shaken and he wasn't happy with his performance, but it's important for Evil Geniuses to go through that kind of experience. If they ended up, third, fourth, fifth place in the LCS this split, but made another run in playoffs, or even if they, falter in playoffs, I think that this was a very good year for them already, based on what they've accomplished in the spring split and at MSI, and in the tournament that happened in the winter. So EG, it sounds crazy, but I really think that over the next 2 years to 3 years, they have a legitimate chance to win an international tournament. And I'm not just talking about MSI. I think, maybe bring in one more player. I don't know if you need to swap out Vulcan or Impact, or Jojo Pyon or Danny or Inspired. I think that Inspired, Jojo Pyon, Danny are going to stay regardless. I think that you might need to swap out Impact or Vulcan or both to get them to that next level where they could compete internationally. But that really should be the goal. And I hope that they're able to accomplish that. Ask yourself this question. If you took Team Liquid and Evil Geniuses and you slapped them together, do you think that Whippo, Inspired, Jojo Pyon, Danny, and Core JJ is better than the current Evil Geniuses roster? I think the answer is yes. Do I think that roster could make semifinals at Worlds, finals at Worlds? I really do. I think it's a really good lineup. We've seen similarly talented European teams make it to that level, and I'm sure some of you disagree with that, but that's fine. It's my video. But that's basically it. So I do think that Evil Geniuses is still the best team in the LCS. I expect them to repeat, but it's obviously a very difficult thing to repeat. So even though I think that's the most likely scenario, it's still only 30% of the time, 25% of the time that they're able to pull that off. And I'm excited. I think that we'll have a good split. I think there are at least 4 to 5 teams in the LCS who will look the part of a champion. Probably really only 3, but I could see 5 teams. 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess really only 4. I think Team Liquid, Evil Geniuses, Cloud9, and 100 Thieves. I think that everybody's kind of expecting them to be the competitors for the LCS summer split, and it'll probably end up that way. One other team might sneak into the semifinals or something, but the winner will most likely be one of those 4 teams. The sportsbook thinks so. All of us basically think so. And that's it. So thanks for watching. If you have some different opinions, feel free to share them in the comment section. I'm sure you have a different opinion on at least one of the teams. But thanks for watching. And I'll talk to you later.